So last week I was getting ready to make a video about something different than this. I learned something about my childhood that was a big surprise, something I never knew about. But then the week sort of took a turn, and so that video is going to have to wait for another time. And so I'm going to talk about something else. I guess I should give a trigger warning that this is a sad story about an animal. So if you don't want to listen to that, then don't. So the week took a difficult and unpleasant turn when my dog died. His name was Cedar. He was 15 years old, and we were expecting that he would probably die sometime in 2025, but we just weren't expecting it to happen this week. So I've been through this process a few times before, and I did some things differently this time that made it a little easier. I mean, not easy, but maybe just easier to accept, easier to find acceptance or get to a feeling of acceptance faster. And this might sound kind of strange, but the thing that I did differently is that we did not bury him for a good 6 hours. So in the past, when we've had dogs die, we buried them right away. And I never liked that. It doesn't feel right to me. So this time I waited for 6 hours, and that's what I did different. So I guess I want to talk about that and then also just tell the story. It probably isn't interesting to anybody except for me and my partner, but I don't know. I'm just processing and I just want to tell the story. So it was last Tuesday on April 1st, I started to notice that Cedar was having a much harder time getting around. Things were getting difficult with him in terms of how much assistance he needed from me, like getting on and off the couch. He would try to get on the couch and kind of slip, and he needed help getting on the couch. And he's gotten clumsier over the last 6 months. He just kind of, slips and runs into things. He lost his hearing. I don't know if we couldn't tell if it was a complete hearing loss or just partial, because sometimes it seemed like he could hear, but definitely not as well. So he needed more assistance with his daily tasks, and I was making adjustments, like putting rugs down on the floor where I could. I gave him this rubber mat that I had from my office to put in front of his bowl because he was slipping every time he tried to eat. And so I gave him mine, and then I just ordered another one for my office, just like Amazon Prime 2-day delivery. And the day that it was delivered was actually the day that he died. So now I have two of those non-slip rubber mats, unless I decide to send the new one back. I don't know. I guess it could be practical for something. Maybe I'll just hang on to it. So I noticed he was having a hard time on Tuesday. And by Tuesday evening, I was starting to feel like I needed to take some time off and make arrangements to do a quality of life check. So I looked at my work schedule. The following day, I had 1 2-hour appointment, but the rest of the day was free. And then I blocked Thursday off completely, just while I could sort out this appointment and get someone to look at him, because I was thinking that maybe I could get some drugs for him to make him feel better, because he had a back hip injury and he just seemed uncomfortable. And we had some doggy pain pills, but my partner a while ago had given them to a neighbor because her dog was hurting. So we didn't have those anymore. So I really needed a prescription. And I realized that it was going to be difficult and too traumatic to try to put him in my car and take him to a clinic. So I needed to find someone to come to our house to check him out. So I did some research and found the services that did house calls on Tuesday evening, and then we were just keeping an eye on him, and I was planning on scheduling something, sorting something out the next day. By Wednesday morning, I was, we were both just observing him, and my partner went to work, and I was thinking that it felt more and more urgent to get someone to come over to check on him, get him some pain pills. And so I was doing that research, and I told my partner that's what I was going to do. And he said, okay, yes, and I will ask my friend Elaine who she used, because one time somebody came to her house for a wellness check and then also to put her dog to sleep. And so I was kind of waiting for that reference so I could, check it out and make the best decision. But then as I was observing Cedar, I just realized that we didn't need a quality of life check. It was just like really time to put him to sleep just because of how rapidly he was declining and needing assistance with everything. So on Wednesday, I called my partner and I told him that. And I said, if you want to find that reference for me, get it for me now, because I'm going to make a decision on this. I'm going to try to take Thursday off and just try to get someone over here because it really isn't looking good. But I didn't really need like an expert opinion to tell me that it was the best thing to do to put him to sleep. I could make that decision on my own because he's my dog. And I've seen this before, and I've also waited too long before. Bombay was another dog that I had, and she had bone cancer, and I waited too long. And my partner felt like I waited too long, but he didn't want to interfere. And so this time with Cedar, he didn't want to tell me what to do. He wanted me to come to that conclusion on my own. And so I called him and talked to him about it and asked him if he thought I was making the right decision or was I overreacting or something. And he said no. He said he was just kind of waiting for me to come to that determination on my own. So I think he was sad, but relieved because he could see that Cedar was in some pain and that at his age he's just not going to heal from this. It was his hip injury. I don't even know if it was like soft tissue or connective tissue or even a fracture. I'm not really sure. But whatever it was, he's probably not going to heal from that at his age. He's not going to have like a miraculous recovery and rebound from something like that. So when I was watching him, he was needing assistance to get on and off the couch. He didn't want to eat his kibble. And when I helped him to go outside, he couldn't lift his leg to pee. He was just kind of like peeing all over himself. And I noticed he was just walking funny. He seemed to only be able to walk sideways, and he just ran into things, like ran into the corner of the house and hit his head. And so on Wednesday, when I had to do that 2-hour appointment, I had to leave him alone for a little while because our other dog wasn't home. And I told my partner, I'm going to do this 2-hour massage, and when you come home, check in on Cedar, and if he seems like he can't be left alone, then don't leave him. So I felt bad about leaving him, even just for a couple hours. I was also watching to see if he would poop, and I did not see him poop. And I think with the way he had mobility issues, he probably couldn't get into the position, And when a person can't poop, then they'll probably die from being full of shit. You have to poop to stay alive. And I just wasn't seeing him do that. So I reached out to the vet on Wednesday, and after, talking it through with my partner and getting his agreement, and he gave me the reference for the other vet person from his friend, and I was looking everywhere for the phone number on her website. I couldn't see it, and I just thought, like, man, is this lady really disorganized? Like, how does like, if nobody can call her, how can they hire her? I couldn't see a phone number anywhere. And then I was talking to my partner later, and like I was looking for a phone number, but what I wasn't reading was that there was this little phrase on the website that said that lady was actually dead. So she died a year ago. So that's why her family or whoever had taken that phone number down, and they had left her website up but put some extra stuff on it that was like references to other options, other vets that might be available for house calls in the area. So anyway, I sent this other one a text. It was one that looked good to me. You don't get a lot of choices. You get what's available, but looked okay. And I sent her a text message, and then I felt really anxious, just like waiting and not knowing when is she going to get back to me. And like, I really wanted this to be settled. I wanted to know that I'm taking tomorrow off and I'm going to secure this appointment and it's going to work out, schedule wise. I just went into this like super practical mode, like calendar, scheduling, time, all this stuff. I got very, very practical, just doing what I had to do. Luckily, the lady got back to me within 10 minutes, which was just such a relief. And she was so nice, and we made arrangements. I gave her, all the details that I could about Cedar, his, size and weight and everything, so she would know how much medicine to bring. So then it was all set. She was going to come the next day on a Thursday at 1:30. And so I told my partner, and he came home early and we spent the evening together, and we had hamburgers one last time. That's a special thing at our house. We probably do once a month. And whenever we have hamburger night, each dog gets a little burger, a little quarter pounder with cheeseburger. And so Cedar got to eat one last cheeseburger. He was not eating kibble at that point, but when we, served him a quarter pound cheeseburger and just handed it to him, he was into it. And yeah, he ate his last cheeseburger. Also, I had this Thursday morning, I had this mammogram scheduled that I made this appointment a long time ago. And I was in such a practical, getting things done mood that I just thought, yeah. So, okay, so I'll have a mammogram at 9:15, and then that'll, you know, hopefully put me back at home by 11. So that's perfect. And then the vet will come at 1:30 and we'll do this, and just thinking like really practically. But then I'm so glad I realized, wait a minute, that is ridiculous. Of course, I have to cancel this mammogram appointment. It makes no sense for me to leave my dog, leave my family, and go do this stupid appointment. It just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, I need to cancel this. So I had to stay on hold for a long time, but I finally got it canceled. It wasn't one of those things where you could just go onto a website and, click to cancel. Had to actually wait on hold. So I got that rescheduled for, I don't know, sometime in May. Hopefully I don't have cancer. So my partner and I both stayed home on Thursday, and Cedar was getting really worse. He did need constant assistance. So the timing of all this is perfect. I'm so grateful that I saw the signs, blocked off my calendar, made the appointment happen, because that day was really the last day. That whole morning, he needed so much assistance with everything, and he was suffering so much that I was just so grateful that I had made this arrangement. Because, like when I was making it, I was like, am I overreacting? Like, do I really need to do this? It's really hard. It's a really hard decision to make. And you don't want to overreact, So that morning, I was over here at my office just briefly doing some stuff. And during that time, Russ jumped in the shower, and both of our dogs, Cedar and the 5-year-old puppy, were just laying on the couch, and Russ saw them before he went in the shower. They're just sleeping on the couch. They're, settled. But while he was in the shower and I was over here, Cedar tried to get up and he fell onto the floor, onto the tile floor, and he couldn't get up, and he was kind of freaking out and like panting a lot. So when I went over there, that's where I saw him on the floor. And he hasn't laid down on the floor in a couple years because he's just too old. Like his body hurts, so he'll only lay on the couch. So it was just a very like jarring and unusual sight to see him on the floor. And he was sort of trying to get up and then couldn't, just kept slipping. And so I had to run over to him and just be on the floor with him and comfort him and just hold him there and get him to stay there until my partner could help me. So that was, kind of a traumatic thing that happened on his last day. And my partner got out of the shower and got dressed and had to actually physically carry Cedar out into the yard, where he could be on the concrete and the dirt where he wouldn't slip all over the tile. He just kind of paced around with his funny gait, walking sideways, bumping into things. He peed all over himself. And then he went to this outdoor water trough. The dogs have indoor water, but we also have a kind of water trough outside. And he was just drinking a lot of water, and we were just watching him. And then he kind of like stumbled and he fell in. And this thing is it's like a Rubbermaid animal feeding trough, or it might even be like meant to be a pond, like you bury it in the dirt and then it's like a little artificial pond, something like that. Anyway, it's, got like 2.5 feet of water in it, and he just fell in it and was freaking out. So I rushed over and had to pull him out of the water, and, he doesn't like taking a bath. So that was traumatic for him. He doesn't want to be all wet. And then my partner came out with a towel and kind of like toweled him off. So those two very traumatic things happened for him on his last day, falling onto the floor and then falling into the water. And then we really just stuck beside him. One of us was always just sitting with him on the couch and keeping an eye on him after that. So we spent that morning just watching him and cleaning up the house a little bit because someone was coming over. And my partner went out and started to dig a hole because we were going to bury him in the yard. We already have 2 other dogs back there, so our yard is getting kind of full. We're sort of running out of spots to bury a dog. And we got all that stuff done, the hole dug and the house clean, and then it was just this waiting game, just like sitting. And I kind of wanted it to be over. I sort of wanted I wanted it to be 1:30. I also have a lot of anxiety about any new people coming for an appointment. I think because I'm a massage therapist, and you know, this lady was not my client. But like when people are coming to me, I have this anxiety that they won't show up, you know, especially if I don't know them. So I just had this kind of like anticipation. Like, will she be able to follow my directions and find the place? What if she's flaky? What if she doesn't show up? I think I just have some PTSD from flaky people not showing up. So I had a little bit of that nervousness. And it was just like this anticipation waiting for this appointment. But she did show up and she was wonderful. She was really amazing. And it was really quick and peaceful. You know, she asked us if we wanted to spend some time, but we'd already spent, you know, a day and a half knowing that this was coming, spending most of our time with him and saying goodbye. So we really didn't want any more time. We just wanted to know that it was over and that he was not going to be hurting anymore. So it was really quick and it was really peaceful. And then the lady left. And we had him on the couch and we had already put a sheet under him so we could easily move him. But we didn't move him. We just left him there for the rest of the day, maybe 6 hours. And there's a reason that I did that, because in the past I have buried dogs quickly and it feels so wrong to me. When Bombay had bone cancer and we had her put to sleep, we just put her in the ground right away. And there wasn't a shroud. She didn't have a sheet around her. So then we were just putting dirt on her body. And, you know, I was going through that, and it's just what you do, you know, like you bury a dog, it's going to get dirt on it, you know. But then after that, it was like maybe evening time and we were trying to just be normal, watch a TV show or something. And I was going out of my mind with this uncontrollable urge to go outside and dig her up. I just couldn't handle the idea of dirt on her fur, like wet mud on her beautiful body. I couldn't stand it. And it was like this sort of crawling out of my skin feeling. And I just had this understanding that we buried her way too fast, that we should have just waited. I think that there's a reason that people have wakes in some cultures, you know, and like keep the body around to look at it, because it takes a while to really understand that there's nobody at home in that body, that the person isn't actually there anymore. And I think if you sit with the body and watch it and see the lifelessness, just observe the lifelessness, then it somehow helps you to accept it. So it's not so shocking that they aren't there anymore, you know, like the next morning when you wake up or you come home and the house is empty, you know, that you've just already kind of integrated that into your understanding a little bit more thoroughly because you took the time to do that. So Cedar stayed right there on the couch and I just sat with him, and I was watching TV and I had my hand on him and I was just kind of petting him. My partner came in and he said, "How's he doing?" And you know, it's okay to laugh. It was funny. So I was just petting him and, you know, it's like his body felt pretty normal for a long time. He felt kind of normal, especially like his ear. It just felt like Cedar's ear. Didn't feel any different, didn't feel dead. But then also just, you know, observing the stillness and the lifelessness, you know, it kind of helped it to sink in. And then my partner took the young one, the 5-year-old, and took her for a play date to go play with her friend. And I just stayed there with Cedar, just sat on the couch, watched TV. And then I noticed something after a few hours that I should have known, but I just totally forgot about. I reached over and I touched his arm and I realized he was getting rigor mortis. And I thought, oh my God, the hole's not going to be big enough, because my partner had dug the hole, and you put a dog in and you kind of curl them up. Well, if they have rigor mortis, you can't do that. And the way that works is that the body will get stiff and it'll kind of peak, and then the rigor mortis will go away and the body will become limp again. But that actually could take like a while, I think like 48 hours. And we had not planned for that. And so I texted my partner and I just said, like, oh shit, I forgot about rigor mortis. I'm afraid the hole is not going to be big enough. And he said, that's okay. I'll make the hole bigger. So he came home later and he did have to make the hole bigger. And I think this whole leaving the body out thing was also good for our 5-year-old poodle to understand what was happening. So she saw that Cedar was having a hard time. He was really struggling. And so she was kind of like sniffing him and checking on him, like, what's wrong with Cedar? What the heck is wrong with this guy? He's acting funny. And then she saw him just lay on the couch and sleep a lot. And then she saw the lady come. And then she noticed that after that, Cedar didn't move at all. So we gave her time to observe that. And then later on in the evening, we actually took the edges of the shroud and placed Cedar onto the floor, onto the tile. And we left him there for about 40 minutes. And we told Poppy, we pointed at Cedar and we said, you smell? And she knows what that means. If you point to something and say, you smell, she knows it means we want her to go over and smell it. So she went over and smelled Cedar, and then she kind of jumped back, like a double take sort of thing. And I've seen this behavior before because when we had a dog called Lila who died, we said the same thing to Cedar. And he went over and smelled Lila and she was dead. And he did the same thing, that kind of jump back thing. I think all that maybe helped her understand. And then she watched us carry him out and put him in the ground and, fold the shroud over him. And then we put some dirt on, and Russ had got these big flowers that he picked that we put in there as well. And she saw us do all this and she was very curious and she thought it was really weird. But I think that it did help her understand, because after that, she never looked for him everywhere. And I've seen with my other dogs, like when Lila died, then Cedar just kept looking for her. She died super unexpectedly right in front of us, just of old age and like some kind of organ failure, just dropped dead. And then we buried her, within an hour, like 90 minutes, just dug the hole and buried her. And then Cedar was just looking for her the next, 3 days, just looking for her everywhere. Well, Poppy didn't do that this time. And I think somehow this process of leaving the body out for so long maybe helped. I did make one mistake that I regret. I had taken Cedar's necklace off, this one, just because I wanted to keep it. So I had taken it off and I put it just over on the table. And then the next morning after we buried him, I wasn't really thinking. And I just absentmindedly picked it up off the table because I was going to bring it over here to my office. And Poppy heard that sound. That's the sound of Cedar. That's what Cedar sounds like. She heard that and she got startled and she started coughing and kind of like she was choking on her own spit, like it just startled her. And I really wish that I had not done that. I could have waited until Poppy left for the day and then collected the necklace. I just wasn't really thinking. So she won't hear that sound again. I've heard that sound because occasionally I get these auditory hallucinations when I'm falling asleep or waking up. And it's like, especially if I forget to take B vitamins. I have some B vitamin depletion. And if I'm taking those pills regularly, then I don't have auditory hallucinations. But sometimes I'm not consistent. So anyway, 3 or 4 times in the night, I kept hearing that sound. And it was the sound of that chain, like when Cedar's scratching his ear, like makes that chain sound. And that's what I heard, in the night that woke me up. So that's what happened. And now I just feel kind of out of it. Like my brain isn't working. So I got really practical and really sharp when I was going through all this, making the arrangements, making the decisions. Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. He's 15. We were expecting this. It's sad, but no, it's okay. And at least we were able to spot it. At least we were able to make these arrangements. At least it was peaceful. But then after that, I just felt tired. My partner, too, just really tired, physically drained all weekend. And I am stupid. Like, I left the oven on for half a day accidentally, just wondering, like, why is the house so hot? I couldn't figure out why it was so warm. It's kind of been a little bit warmer lately. I left the fucking oven on 425 degrees for half a day. That's why the house was so hot. And another time I did the dishes and then sat down. Like 20 minutes later, I looked over and the water was just running. I just left the water running. And so that's why I'm not working on my projects. I'm kind of in the middle of a dressmaking project, and that's on pause right now because I don't want to make a mistake. I haven't gotten in my car to go anywhere. I'm not chopping wood or anything like that. I just feel like really absent-minded and not very interested in anything. And I'm sure that'll come back. Yeah, I'm sure that I'll start to feel more normal every day. Food was different. I mean, I've been like eating less, but still kind of eating. But I did notice that food just did not have a flavor or something. It was like lacking dimensionality. It didn't taste like anything. So I was really just, eating something because I was supposed to. You just have to eat a little bit every day, but it didn't really taste like anything. So yeah, that's my story. Thanks for listening. All right, bye.
Super.